I want to talk about how Christ or Yeshua or Jesus fulfilled the law, because so many people misunderstand Matthew 5 verse 17 and following, where it says, "Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill." Verse 18, "For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass away from the law, until all is accomplished." Verse 19, "Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same," which is what basically a lot of pastors are doing today, whether it's in ignorance or whether they're just trying to build a congregation instead of worrying about the truth, because the truth is not popular with a lot of people, although more and more people are waking up to the Sabbath, the holy days, the clean and unclean foods. You know, it's to me, it's important because he is sealing his people by waking them up to these truths. The bride is making herself ready. Part of that is following the wedding contract. The Torah, no, we're not saved by it. Yeshua did that. Yeshua saved us because, as you will see, as I'm going to work to show, he fulfilled by being a sacrifice. So we'll finish this. Whoever shall be least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever keeps and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So people will use that and say, "Oh, well, see, he did away with the law." No, he didn't. He simply became the sacrifice. He came to drink the cup, the cup of judgment. I believe in, if you would turn to Matthew 26, and you would see it from verse 36 to 46, read the whole thing. But here I'll just mention a couple of things. You see in verse 42, he went away again a second time and prayed, saying, "My Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done." What was he drinking? Just like when John and James and John came to him and he asked him, "Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink?" I believe he was referring to the cup of judgment, which is one of the four cups at a Jewish Seder. Sure, whether we should keep the Seder or not is debatable. I would do it if I had kids, to teach them the heritage, to teach them his story, because his story, when we accept Christ, becomes our story. And you see here in verse 39, he went a little beyond and fell on his face and prayed, which I think that could be a very good example of how we should pray. We should pray prostrate or on our knees. I believe it helps us to focus in prayer, just like wearing this helps me to focus in prayer, which you can see that in my video on the Talit. But it says, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." And, so you see these things. He's talking about the cup of judgment, I believe. In fact, the commentary talks about the commentary in this particular Bible says, a cup is often a symbol of divine wrath against sin in the quote-unquote Old Testament. So, we see these things, and we need to realize, he didn't abolish the law, he fulfilled it. He fulfilled it by being the sacrifice. The fact that people were able to touch and be healed shows you that is evidence of him being the Messiah, of him being the sacrifice. Because it says in Leviticus, 6, let's turn there, Leviticus 6, verse 18. Whoever touches them will become consecrated. So we see a holy flesh. Whoever touches the sacrifice. And by the way, when you look at these sacrifices, the fire was to keep burning constantly. And, the sin was transferred to the sacrifice. And then it was burned on the altar. I believe Yahweh, or God, did that intentionally to show us what the wages of sin. The wages of sin is death. The animal died and was burned. And if you look at my videos on the consuming fire, about God being a consuming fire, in fact, you can look at where Abraham entered into the covenant back in Genesis 17, I believe. Where he well, actually, 17 talks about the circumcision, which is important because as circumcision was a sign of being Abraham's descendant, so we are, if we have the circumcision is not in the flesh necessarily anymore, but in the heart. It was part of a cleansing of the heart. That's part of the circumcision. That's part of the law being put upon our heart in fulfilling Jeremiah 31:31 through 33. But basically, you can read about here it is in Genesis 15, verse 17. Latter part of the verse says, "There appeared a smoking oven and a flaming torch which passed between these pieces." After Abraham had cut these animals in two to ratify this covenant, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, or Abram, which became Abraham. You see that through that, that's covenant. That's a blood covenant. And people will say that sacrifice, sacrifice something old. Well, Cain and Abel sacrificed. It talks about that's where Abel was killed because Cain's sacrifice was not accepted, but Abel's sacrifice was accepted. And that's where you see that. And also, by the way, when you look at judgment, the righteous Noah was saved whereas everyone else was destroyed. The oil we have today is a symbol of judgment, is a symbol of God's judgment on the world. The oil we have today, guess where it came from? It came from people, it came from all the trees, because the biomass of the planet, the amount of trees on the planet at the time, was far higher than what it is today. And, so we have oil, and what does oil do? We burn it. Just like the sacrifices on the altar were burned, that should give us an idea of when it says God is a consuming fire, what is he consuming? He consumes sin. He doesn't consume the righteous. He consumes sin. So we look at that, and if you look at all the sacrifices, the people put their hand on the sacrifice and then it was killed. That was part of where all these people were healed with Yeshua. Like John says, this is written down so that you will believe. Not all the miracles are written down because it would fill the whole world with books of what happened, but it was simply there to believe. It's just like there are a lot of things in Scripture that aren't specifically every detail, but there to get a point across. So I just would hope that this would help you to realize that no, the law was not done away with, and that he fulfilled it by being the sacrifice, becoming the Passover lamb, the atonement, the scapegoat, all those things. He became those things. But that doesn't excuse us from, we can do whatever we want. No, out of respect, if nothing else, out of respect for him dying for us. By his stripes we are healed. And you can read in Leviticus, the unleavened bread was put on a grill, which created stripes, which is representative of Christ. You look at the matzah, it has stripes on it. Stripes and holes. And, he was pierced through for our transgression. The matzah represents his body. And the wine, his blood. But it's also a marriage proposal. That was part of the Jewish wedding, which I would highly suggest you research. But it was part of the Jewish wedding. So, I hope this is helpful in helping you understand that what it means that the law was fulfilled. It was fulfilled, not done away with.